A very, very good morning to all of you. I hope everyone is doing fine. Welcome to the class today. We are discussing residential status, chapter 2. So we have done residential in first class. Now we'll be understanding scope of total income and section 9. Very, very, very important for all of you. So I welcome you all to today's class. Please settle in, ask your queries if you have any from the previous sessions, and we shall proceed. Hi Dinesh, thank you so much. Yes, the festive season now is at its peak. Happy Diwali to everyone. Just today's class and probably I have off from tomorrow for 2-3 days. Great. So I'm doing fine now. Thank you, Dinesh, for asking. Okay. So Dinesh is saying is senior citizen in ROR or RNOR. So every person, irrespective of their age, irrespective of the place of birth, has to be classified as resident or non-resident. Further, individuals in HUF sorry, have to be classified as ROR and RNOR, which is your resident and ordinarily resident but not ordinarily resident once they qualify as resident. So Jyoti, residential status of HUF is very simple. HUF is a resident if the control and management are wholly or partly in India. If they are completely outside India, then HUF is a non-resident. And once they qualify as a resident, then you see the condition for Karta. Karta, if is in India for 730 days or more in the past 7 previous years, immediately preceding the current previous year, and along with that, he's a resident in 2 out of 10 previous years, then the HUF qualifies as your resident and ordinarily resident. Nikita, is there any specific doubt or on the entire concept you have a doubt? So everyone on the screen, please. So here, if you see, once you qualify as per section 6, the residential status of any person which is there in your question, for you, this is very important at your level. I'm telling again and again. Once you qualify them as the resident or ordinary resident, but not ordinary resident or non-resident in these 3 categories, then the scope of total income is decided. What is scope of total income? Scope means how much of the total income would be taxed in India. Basically, you are defining now the boundary for each person that such types of income would be taxed in India. The scope of getting taxed in India is to this particular extent. So for a non-resident, only Indian income is taxed. So Indian income is a layman word. It's a general word which people refer, but Indian income technically means income received or deemed to be received in India or accrued or deemed to be accrued in India. Only this income is taxed in the hands of non-resident. Where in the case of resident and ordinarily resident or only resident, which are from this, because they do not qualify into ROR. So these categories of person may ye wala condition, okay? So resident for firm, LLP, AOP, BOI company or ROR for individual and HUF ka global income is taxable. Global income means the scope of total income which is being taxed in India would be your entire income irrespective of the source or irrespective of the place you have received it. Entire income would be taxable. Now, beach make person आता है resident but not ordinarily resident. This is only in the case of individual and HUF. उनका भी only Indian income would be taxable. Indian income again received or deemed to be received, or accrued or deemed to be accrued. Now, deemed वाला provisions क्या है is what we'll be seeing today. And at the same time, foreign income would only be taxable to the extent for the business which is controlled from India. So if you're controlling any business from India, then your foreign income would be also be taxable. Now suppose Mr. Adani is an RNOR. Suppose. So if he's controlling any business from India, suppose he's controlling a port in South Africa from India. So whatever the port incomes would be, it would be taxable in his hand, because as per the boundary now, which is the scope for an RNOR, the income which accrues outside India is also taxable, provided the business is controlled from India. Got it? Is it clear now? Jyoti, please, I have repetitively said this in the previous classes also, and I really don't like saying no, but this is the maximum. I think we have to have the language and the medium in English. The maximum I can use is to summarize it, or if the concept is becoming very technical, then to just give a one-liner in Hindi. So for everyone who requests me to speak in Hindi, please know that we all are seriously asked to speak and deliver the lectures in English. Good. So now let's proceed. Or I hope doubt nahi hai. If some doubts come, please take it in during the end of the session. I think last time, because the light went off, my light went off and inverter could not lift up. So the session got ended without saying a goodbye. But otherwise, I hope all the doubts were taken in the previous sessions also. Okay. Sure. So now, as we thank you for asking the doubt, Mahima. Now, as we discussed, this is what the base of our discussion would be today. I have repetitively told received or deemed to be received in India is taxable, irrespective of kahan se bhi ho raha hai. Correct. Received or deemed to be received in India is taxable. I am extremely sorry for the bad handwriting. Now, received remember I told you received means first incidence of receiving it. First incidence of receiving means when the recipient gets the income for the first time. Now, he may get or she may get the income in a particular bank in USA and then transfer it to a bank in India. Does not mean now that the income is received in India. It does not mean that the income is received in India. The first time when the assessee receives the income is what is the place of receiving that income. If it's USA, then it's USA. If it's India, then it's India. Further remittance does not qualify to be received. Clear? Now, what is deemed to be received? What is deemed to be received? So, section 7 tells me about deemed to be received. Now, this term you will be seeing quite a lot during the understanding of your act. What is deemed or what is deeming provisions? These terms will come quite a few times during the act. Deemed, deemed to be, deemed to be, deemed to be. So deemed to means which are assumed to be, which are supposed to be, which are now taken as. They actually are not, but they would be taken as. So suppose receive नहीं हुआ actual में फिर भी माना जाएगा कि receive हुआ. So when I use the word deemed, it means कि माना जाएगा. It will be assumed from now for these particular things. Okay. So income deemed to be received means that even if you have not received in your bank account or in your hand, but it would be deemed that you have received it. And when it is deemed that you have received it, that means it is equal to now being taxed. Received or deemed to be received. Received means actually receiving for the first time. Deemed to be received means not actually received, but it would be assumed to be received. There are many places in the income tax where you see these deeming provisions, where on the prima facie you will see that this is not received or this is not the situation, but they are deeming it to be. Okay. So what are the deemed to be received particular three things? Now this, probably all these three things, you will now again say, कि मैम फिर से बाद में समझ में आएगा, but I'll explain it. But all these three things would have a better clarity once you do the income under the head salary. Why the handwriting is so bad today? So once you do the income under the head salary better. Okay. So ये तीन और अच्छे से समझ आएंगे, but I'll explain it. So your employer makes a contribution. The employer makes a contribution to a certain percentage of contribution to your provident fund. Provident fund क्या होता है, क्यों खोलते हैं, सब पता चलेगा थोड़ा सा धीरे. ठीक है. The employer makes a contribution to your provident fund to a certain percentage of your salary. To a certain percentage of salary. So suppose I am your employer, I make a contribution to the provident fund which I have opened for your behalf. These are retirement funds, these are social security funds. Okay. So anything which I make a contribution over 12% or over 12%, then in that case, whatever the excess amount is, it would be deemed to be received by you. Even if you're not getting to in your hand, what is happening is it is being transferred to a fund in your name. So any amount which is excess of 12% would be deemed to be received by you. You will see in your salary chapter, you will see excess of 12% is tax, but you need to wait thoda sa to get a more clear vision of this. Okay. Similarly, if the interest on that provident fund is more than 9.5%, if the interest on the provident fund is more than 9.5%, so whatever is the excess amount of over and above 9.5%, suppose the rate is 10%, so 0.5% ka interest would be deemed to be received. So 0.5% ka interest would be deemed to be received, even if it is getting accredited in your RPF account. You're not receiving it in your hand, but excess interest, not the 9.5% wala interest, uska upar ka interest, whatever is the excess amount, would be deemed to be received. Next, any contribution which your employer, being a central government or otherwise, makes to a pension scheme. One is provident funds. There is also one thing called pension scheme. Atal Pension Yojana is very common. Whatever contribution they make, it is deemed to be your received income, and hence it is taxed. So there are two types of provident fund, RPF and URPF, recognized provident fund and unrecognized provident fund. So if you transfer your amount from unrecognized provident fund to recognized provident fund, then the employer ka contribution and interest is deemed to be received. So you're not getting anything in your account. You're not getting anything in your account, but it is being transferred from one fund to another. So this unrecognized से recognized में transfer करने के process में, whatever the employer contribution and interest you have transferred, that is your deemed income. Now, in all these scenarios, students, if I can sum up now to make you understand, then you just have to remember कि in sub situation में, in all this situation, I'm not getting anything in my bank account or in my hand, but they are getting credited in a fund which is going for my benefit, उस fund में, in that fund, anything which is in excess to a certain percentage is deemed to be received. Number one. Number two, for pension scheme, any contribution which is made is deemed to be received. Even if वो fund में जा रहा है, मेरे पास नहीं आ रहा, even if it is going in the fund, but I am not getting it, still it is deemed to be received. Number three, any amount which is being transferred is still it is deemed to be received. Now, इस पे again I am saying, promise me you will visit section 7 once you do salary, because salary में ये automatically clear हो जाएगा. Okay. So with the IPF is recognized provident fund, okay? Provident fund होते हैं, one is recognized, one is unrecognized. There is public provident fund also, there is statutory provident fund also. All of this would be taken care in your salary bit. So received or deemed to be received, I hope is now clear. Now we proceed to understand what is accrued and deemed to be accrued. Now this is the most important section. Now as this section is deemed to be accrued is section 9. We'll see what is that. But this is actually the base of your scope of total income for specifically non-residents and other, because it actually tell what is would be taxable in India. Everyone, please pay attention on the screen. Meaning of income accruing and arising. Now, first of all, there are two terms which we commonly use. One is accrue and one is due. What is the difference between accrue and due? What is the difference between accrue and due? Okay, Ansari means very good. Okay, on the table, no problem. Please do not read it from book. Rohit, I hope this is not an answer from the book. Okay, so यहाँ पे the first line itself, which is there on your screen for a long time, is actually the crux of accrue and due. People use this term interchangeably. Kabhi they use accrue, kabhi they use due, because they mean to say same thing. But actually, accrue means right to receive the income, and due means right to enforce the payment. Now, what is this 2 points? Right to receive, matlab during that period when the income is getting accrued, you have that right on that income, number one. When something is due, that means now you can ask for the payment for it. Now you can legally enforce the payment for it. Very common examples are salary. Salary gets accrued means whenever you're working, your right to receive it is getting accrued. That means the salary is getting accrued during that period. Due means when actually the payment is made by the company. Suppose they make the payment on 7th of the next month or 31st of the month. That means 31st for your salary gets due to be received. So once an income is accrued and then it is due to be received, like interest in your bank accounts, it gets accrued. Yani you have a right to get the interest on every day. On every day the balance is maintained. But the actual due is probably quarterly or half yearly or annually, as the bank says. Clear? Without next point. Once an income gets accrued, once an income is taxed on accrual basis, this I told in the previous class also, it will not be taxed again on received basis. So suppose in previous year, 1920, the income was accrued. but I received it in previous year 2021. So you will not say, ma'am, aapne to kaha tha received or deemed to be received, everything would be taxable. I said it, but I also said it that if something is taxed earlier, the same income cannot be taxed twice in India. So something is taxed earlier in 1 year, it cannot be taxed early because of some other concept. It cannot be taxed again in the next year. So, आपने 1920 में accrual पे already you may have included in, may definitely have included in your previous year 1920 ka return. Now in previous year 2021, you will not include again. This is only I'm talking about in India. If something is getting accrued outside India now, will the answer change? So suppose an income was accrued outside India to me in previous year 21, 22. Now I received it in India in previous year 22, 23. I am a resident. So will the answer change for me? The answer is no, because in the 21, 22 itself, I would have accrued it. The income would have accrued and I would have included in my total income. Clear? One more explanation is there to remove the doubt. Is this? With the view of removing difficulties and clarifying doubts in the taxation of income. Okay, explanation 1 to section 5, which is the scope of total income, specifically provides that an item of income accruing or arising outside India shall not be deemed, यहाँ पे deemed नहीं, shall not be deemed to be received in India, mainly because it is taken into account in balance sheet prepared in India. So क्या होता है? Consolidated balance sheets बनते हैं. Okay. So if a company is in India, it has a subsidiary abroad, they make a consolidated balance sheet of it. Now, when you're making a balance sheet of it in India, you will prepare the subsidiary ka pura balance sheet. Now, subsidiary ka pura balance sheet, when you're preparing, you're taking their entire income into the P&L account. Correct. So that does not mean that you have included in the P&L account, does not mean that's an Indian income. Just because you are maintaining the books of accounts and you have to show the books of accounts in a way where your subsidiaries' incomes are also included, does not automatically make that, since it is appearing in the Indian balance sheet, since it is appearing in the Indian balance sheet, does not automatically mean that it's a accrued income. Okay? Clear? Read it again. Many of you gave the correct answers. Good. Rohit gave correct. Jyoti gave correct. And then, very good. Alok gave it correct. Rushabh said it correct. Accrue मतलब आगे मिलेगा, due मतलब मिलना था, मिला नहीं. A bit correct, I'll say. Okay. Now, Dinesh has asked, when is income taxable, accrued or received? So income, first of all, you should know that your income would be taxed when it is received in India or accrued in India. That is very much clear. Now, on what basis it would be taxed, on accrued or received basis? Now, for salary, for house property, for your capital gains, they are pretty much clear that when would be the point of taxation. Okay, for your PGBP income, which is your business income or your other sources income, you tax it based on these accounting you are preparing. So if you are following mercantile system, which is your accrual system of accounting, then you will tax it on accrue basis. If you're following a receipt system of accounting, you will tax the income on receipt basis. Priyanka, what is your query? I haven't received any query up till now. Is the interest point of accrual? I'll explain it. If any foreign business is controlled in India, income arising of such business would be taxable in India. Correct in the case of ROR and RNOR. I gave an Adani example. Same way. Okay. Now we are moving to one of the most technical and very, very, very important section, and I'm hyping it because it is worth the hype. Okay. So please, everyone, and this section is repetitively modified, or I should say it is a very crucial section for Indian taxation. Many changes come in this section based on the scenarios which are happening at the global level. So this section, which it was used to be probably when I studied CA, was different. Then when I completed CA, it was different. Then when I was into my job, it was different. Now today it is different because the section keeps on evolving. This particular section keeps on evolving based on the circumstances, on the loopholes, on the global scenarios which is happening in the global taxation. Okay. So now let's understand income deemed to accrue. कि कब income accrue माना जाएगा या ये माना जाएगा it is arise, accrue or arise in India. When it would be deemed that the income is accrue or arise in India. Prima facie you may say कि मैम ये तो कहीं से नहीं लग रहा कि इंडिया में accrue है या एक और ये specifically ये points कब आएंगे use में जब एक non-resident person बाहर बैठ के income India से ले रहा है. When a non-resident person sitting outside India, for him these points are very important because he should know that the moment I have certain transactions, the moment there is something which is coming out of India, it may become an income deemed to accrue or arise in India. Okay, so especially section 9 subsection 1. Let's see what are these things. Just give me a moment. I'll open your PDF also. Just give me a moment. Yeah, so now you will see on the screen section 9. Now section 9 का subsection 1 में section 9 subsection 1. It includes 8 different categories of income which are deemed to accrue or arise in India. So if you see, these are on your screen, section 9 subsection 1. May these all are 1, 2, 3. ऐसे करते करते these all are different types of incomes जिनके लिए we have a clarification that we have a section which says that these income would be accrued or arise in India. What are all these income which we will be doing it in one by one step. First we'll be covering this, then we'll be covering your Where is that? यहाँ पे एक पार्ट और मिसिंग है एक्चुअली. ठीक है, there is one more. Yeah. We'll be covering this transfer of capital assets situated in India. All of these one by one would be covered. So please hold your horses. We'll do it step by step. I just want you to know that income deemed to accrue or arise in India is huge, and we will understand it step by step. So first thing is, when what is the income deemed to accrue or arise in India as per section 9 subsection 1. First, it includes income accruing or arising outside India, directly or indirectly, through or from any business connection in India. This is my first most important section 9 subsection 1 clause 1 में उसका this part first is very important. income accruing or arising outside India, यानी आपको लग रहा है कि वो accrue बाहर हुई है, arise बाहर हुई है, but it has come from directly or indirectly from a business connection in India. So for a non-resident who is sitting outside India have an income which is accruing outside India also, but it is indirectly coming from a business connection in India. That means it's an income deemed to be accrued in India. सबसे पहले this point is clear what this language means, that income is accruing or arising outside India, but it is directly or indirectly coming from a business connection in India. That means that income of non-resident is deemed to be accrued or arise in India. Why I am using the word barbar non-resident? Because for a resident, the incomes are always taxable. So accrual ka concept becomes very important when you are considering something from the perspective of a non-resident, because there we have to differentiate what is accrued or arise in India, and then only you have to tax it. So accrued or arise in India may deemed to accrue or arise in India is also included, and deemed to accrue or arise in India may first point is if the income is accruing outside India, but if it is coming from business connection in India, if it is coming from business connection in India, then it is deemed to be accrued in India, and hence it is taxable in the hands of non-resident. First point, samajh aaya na? Obviously, everyone's question right now would be, ma'am, what is the business connection? Correct. But language samajh aaya. Now we will understand what is a business connection and what is not the business connection. Yataraj Sankaran, abhi I have not completed it. I'm just giving you the hold of it, okay? Kanak Rani, global income means the entire income which you're earning in India or outside India, anywhere. Around the globe, whatever you're earning, okay? So I'll repeat again. Income deemed to accrue or arise in India covers different categories of income. The first such category is income accruing arising outside India, but from a business connection in India. Income is getting accrued bahar, but it is coming from a business connection in India, and hence it would be deemed to be an Indian income through the accrual concept. Okay. But it would be deemed to accrue or arise in India. Now, what is a business connection in India? Let's see that. Business connection बोल तो दिया, but what is actually a business connection? Business connection can be an agent, it can be a company, agent, individual, anyone. So if I'm talking about non-resident, Mr. X, he's sitting in Germany, simple, relaxing, chilling, but he has an agent in India who is doing work on his behalf, who's taking contracts, who's getting stock maintained, who's purchasing certain articles. He's like an agent of Mr. X. So that agent is a business connection in layman language. अगर मैं सिर्फ समझाऊं, but technical concept में वो agent या वो business connection का क्या definition है वो देखते हैं. ठीक है, but ये perspective में रखना कि Mr. X बाहर है and he has a person in India who is Mr. Sham, who works as an agent, principal agent relationship. I hope everyone knows. Yeah. So who works as an agent for Mr. Shah, for Mr. X. Mr. Sham is working as an agent in India for Mr. X. It's not agent Vinod or spy thrillers we are working here. That agent like a person who is working on behalf of this person. Okay. So Mr. X is an agent of Mr. Sham. We can say that Mr. Sham is a business connection of Mr. X. Mr. X is Mr. X का agent है Mr. Sham. अगर Mr. Sham definition में cover हो गए business connection के, तो we can say Mr. Sham is a business connection of Mr. X in India, and anything which is accruing through this business connection is an income deemed to be accrued arise in India. इतना समझ आया कि Mr. X का एक agent है Mr. Sham. Now we see if Mr. Sham fulfills into the business connection ka definition, then we will say Mr. Sham is the business connection of Mr. X, and anything which is basically coming directly or indirectly from a business connection, that is from Mr. Sham, would be deemed to accrue or arise in India. And hence it would be taxable in the hands of whom? In the hands of Mr. X, because वो Mr. X का deemed to be accrue or arise in India. तो शाम का income नहीं है. Income is of Mr. X. Now let's understand what is business connection and whether Mr. Sham is falling into that definition of business connection. सबसे पहले, for business connection to be established, the person acting on behalf of the non-resident. The person acting on behalf of the non-resident, that is Mr. Sham in this case, and non-resident is Mr. X, must have an authority which is habitually exercised in India to conclude contracts on behalf of the non-resident. Yani Mr. Sham has an authority to conclude contracts. And that authority is not one-time authority, it's an habitually exercised authority. The word being used here is habitually, which is like it's a habit of Mr. Sham to conclude contracts on behalf of Mr. X. So hence, if Mr. Sham is concluding contracts on behalf of Mr. X, that means Mr. Sham is the business connection of Mr. X. That means any income which is now coming from the conclusion of those contracts is deemed to be accrue or arise in India and would be taxable in the hands of Mr. X. पहले ये बार-बार why I am using Mr. X, Mr. Sham, so that it gets into you कि business connection से आने का क्या मतलब है? What does it means to come from business connection? ठीक है, एक बारी फिर से पढ़ो बिकॉज आगे थोड़ा सा वो अगेन टेक्निकल होता जाएगा. Read it only till the point I have highlighted. Saurav, this is very important topic going. Focus here, please. Then I will take it. अभी business connection का definition is not over, but I want you to understand कि यहाँ तक समझ आया because it is very important. Guys, yes, no. ठीक है. So Kavita, listen carefully. We are understanding income deemed to accrue or arise in India. Okay, income deemed to accrue or arise in India मतलब कब वो माना जाएगा कि income accrue हुआ है इंडिया में? When will it be assumed कि income accrue हुआ है इंडिया में? Now this section actually gives the scope entire understanding कि when an income would be deemed to accrue or arise in India. उसमें first point का भी first point है that income would be deemed to accrue or arise in India when an income is accruing outside India. ऐसा लग रहा है कि वो बाहर accrue हो रही है, but it is coming from a business connection in India, so then it would be deemed to be accrue or arise in India. ठीक है. Now first part में I gave an example कि Mr. X है, उनके एजेंट है Mr. Sham, but Mr. Sham के it does not mean कि Mr. Sham के through principal एजेंट का फर्क पता है. Principal main person होते हैं, agent is like a representative who is working on behalf of that principal. Now when will Mr. Sham be a business connection of Mr. X? उसके लिए definition पढ़ना पड़ेगा. And once Mr. Sham qualifies to be a business connection of Mr. X, then anything which is happening through the business connection, of Mr. X, which is Mr. Sham, would be deemed to be accrue or arise in India income for Mr. X. Clear? तो फर्स्ट कॉन्सेप्ट में हमने पढ़ा कि बिजनेस, गणेश अभी आगे क्यों जाते हो यार आप लोग. हाँ, फर्स्ट कॉन्सेप्ट में पढ़ा, फॉर अ बिजनेस कनेक्शन टू बी एस्टैब्लिश्ड द पर्सन हु इज एक्टिंग ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ द नॉन रेजिडेंट, यानी मिस्टर श्याम हु इज एक्टिंग ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ मिस्टर एक्स, must have an authority which is habitually exercised. Authority means power of authority. एक proper authority है. ऐसा नहीं है कि मिस्टर श्याम अपनी मर्जी से सब कुछ कर रहा है. Okay? So Ganesh. So must have an authority which is habitually exercised in India to conclude contracts on behalf of the non-resident. So Mr. Sham क्या करते हैं? इंडिया में Mr. X के contracts को conclude करते हैं, finalize करते हैं. So Mr. Sham is concluding the contracts of Mr. X in India. उसकी वजह से Mr. X may be having any income outside India, but that would be assumed that it has come from Mr. Sham and hence it would be an income in India taxable for Mr. X. ठीक है. और Mr. Sham habitually concludes contract or habitually plays the principal role leading into the conclusion of contracts by that non-resident, and such contracts are in the name of non-resident or are for transfer of ownership, for granting of right to use property owned by the non-resident or that non-resident has the right to use, or for the provision of service by the non-resident. Then also the business connection would be established, and Mr. Sham ke through whatever the incomes are coming through Mr. Sham of those contracts would be deemed to accrue or arise in India for Mr. X. So अगर Mr. Sham कोई भी contract को conclude करते हैं या उसमें principal role play करते हैं, so if Mr. Sham is concluding any contract or is playing the principal role in concluding those contracts in the name of non-resident, वो contract could be for transfer of ownership, or for granting of right, or for using the property of non-resident, like royalty मिल रहा है non-resident को, or non-resident will provide certain services for which he will get income. All these incomes which are getting from those contracts, which is being concluded by business connection, would be deemed to accrue or arise in India. Clear? Next, Mr. Sham. Business connection का definition में one is concluding the contracts. Another is maintaining stock. So if Mr. Sham maintains stock in India for Mr. X, then Mr. Sham is a business connection, and any income coming from sale of such stock would be income deemed to accrue or arise in India. So next case, यहाँ से पढ़ते फिर से. For a business connection to be established, the person acting on behalf of the non-resident. So Mr. Sham acting on behalf of Mr. X, in case has no such authority, but habitually maintains in India a stock of goods or merchandise from which he regularly delivers goods or merchandise on behalf of the non-resident, then Mr. Sham is the business connection, and then any income coming from the delivery of such goods would be taxable in the hands of Mr. X as income deemed to accrue or arise in India. Clear? Next. Habitually secures orders in India, mainly or wholly for the non-resident. Mainly and wholly for the non-resident. So Mr. X के behalf पे, if Mr. Sham is habitually securing the orders मतलब contract लेना, tenders लेना, all of these things for the non-resident, then it is an income coming from business connection and it would be deemed to arise in India and it would be taxable in the hands of Mr. X. Clear? So when a person is said to be a business connection, when he habitually concludes contracts, when he habitually maintains stocks, or when he habitually secures order. आपने एक चीज देखा होगा, habitually word has been written careful बार because they want to focus on it, means that it's not a one-time exercise, it happens continuously like in habit. Okay? So then a business connection is established and any income coming from that business connection for the purpose of he's being established as business connection would be deemed to accrue or arise in India, even if वो बाहर मिल रही है Mr. X को foreign currency में मिल रही है, Mr. X बाहर सब कुछ कर रहे हैं, it would be deemed to accrue or arise in India. Clear? यहाँ तक ऋषभ एक्स नहीं, श्याम इज एन एजेंट. सारा क्वेश्चन ही चेंज कर दिया. अर्पिता, who would be liable to pay tax? Mr. X. इनकम किसका हो रहा है? Mr. X का. प्रिंसिपल एजेंट रिलेशनशिप में भी तो यही होता है ना, एनी पर्सन हु एजेंट का इनकम नहीं होता, एजेंट का काम होता है गेट द ऑर्डर्स. इनकम एक्चुअली किसका होता है? प्रिंसिपल का. एजेंट को कमीशन मिलता है या कुछ भी रिवॉर्ड्स मिलता है, एनीथिंग, इट कैन बी एनीथिंग. एक बारी रीड इट. Especially business connection पे आके I slow my speed so that you people understand it, because actually this is very technical and very important. Good. I think no need to say sorry, no problem. So again I'll conclude. Once a business connection is established, how will a business connection be established? If the person who is acting on behalf of the non-resident, either habitually conclude contracts, habitually maintain stocks, habitually secures order, he's a business connection. Anything coming from that business connection, directly or indirectly from that business connection, would be an income of the non-resident, because that person is acting on behalf of non-resident, even if it is accruing or arising outside India, but it would be deemed to accrue or arise in India, and hence it would be taxable as an income of the non-resident, and non-resident has to pay tax on it. ठीक है. अब यहाँ पे ना एक securing of order में बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग चीज है, बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग. I told you, Mr. X, please do not see here. क्या यहाँ पे business connection कौन है? श्याम. Because why he's a business connection? Because he secures order, habitually secures order for Mr. X. Who secures orders? Sham secures orders in India for Mr. X, and hence whatever income is coming from securing such order is an income of Mr. X. Okay? But साथ Sham also secured an order or so, matlab not habitually, he secured 1 or 2, 3 more orders of Mr. Y. Not habitually, just 1 or 2, 3 more orders of Mr. Y also. Sham secured 1 or 2, 3 orders for Mr. Y also. Then whether Mr. Y whether Mr. Y and Shyam, now whether Shyam is a business connection for Mr. Y, the answer is yes. If the answer is yes, if X controls Y or Y controls X, or both are controlled by a common entity, which is Z. What did I say? You know that Shyam is a business connection of Mr. X because he habitually secures order for Mr. X. Okay. But Shyam secured an order or so for Mr. Y also, but not habitually, just one or two contracts for Mr. Y also. Now, will Shyam be a business connection of Mr. Y? And whatever income is coming from that Shyam will be an income for Mr. Y? The answer is yes, it would be deemed to accrue or arise in India. Yes, business connection would be established only if X and Y are controlled by same person, or X controls Y or Y controls X. Why so? So I will tell you why. क्या हुआ, मिस्टर एक्स को एक बहुत मोटा ये मिस्टर वाई का स्टोरी क्यों लेके आए? Why did they bring the story Mr. Y? So suppose Mr. X is getting a huge order from India. ठीक है, but he thinks कि already my income, so much income is there already, so let's divert an income and ये order मैं Y को दे देता हूँ. ठीक है, शाम के थ्रू जो order आ रहा है, I'll give it in the name of Y because we are all the same person. दोनों एक X and Y की जगह think of subsidiaries, two subsidiaries or holding a subsidiary, उसको दे देता हूँ. And because it's Mr. Shyam is not habitually doing it for him, so that income would not be deemed to accrue or arise in India. But the income tax covered this scenario also, that where there is a relation between X and Y, and Shyam is doing something for Y, then whatever Shyam is doing something like only for securing order, even if Shyam is not a proper business connection because he is not habitually doing it for him, but if Shyam secures an order or so for Mr. Y, then business connection would be established only if X and Y are related in a manner that X controls Y, Y controls X, or X and Y are controlled by Z. Clear? सिक्योरिंग ऑर्डर मतलब कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स लेना, टेंडर्स लेना, यहाँ पे जाके आप एक डील हैपन कर रहे हो, दैट इज सिक्योरिंग ऑर्डर. Correct, Rohit. Very correctly pointed. If Shyam receives order habitually from Mr. Y, then it will directly be a business connection. You have to check only if it is not habitual. Correct. Absolutely. Sabhi, यहाँ पे see the slide is written. If Mr. X and Y both are stranger to themselves, then Y जिसके लिए वो habitually कर रहा है, exclusively कर रहा है, I'll come to that point also. Then the business connection is said to be established. यहाँ पे see it's written carefully. Further, there may be situations when the person acting on behalf of the non-resident, यानी Mr. Shyam acting on behalf of Mr. X, secures order for other non-resident, which is Mr. Y. In such a situation, business connection for Mr. Y is established if Mr. Y controls Mr. X, or Mr. Y is controlled by Mr. X, or both Mr. Y and Mr. X is subject to same control, which is Mr. Z. In all these situations, business connection is established where a person habitually secures order in India, mainly and wholly for such non-residents. Now ये जो मिस्टर एक्स एंड मिस्टर एक्स और श्याम की बात हो रही है, ये एक एक्सक्लूसिव रिलेशनशिप होना चाहिए. मिस्टर एक्स एंड मिस्टर एक्स एंड श्याम में एक एक्सक्लूसिव रिलेशनशिप होना चाहिए. दैट मीन्स श्याम इज purposely specifically working for Mr. X. Mr. Sham is purposely specifically working for Mr. X. Then only Sham would be a business connection. If Sham is having an independent status of an agent, dependent status hona chahiye Mr. X or Sham mein. But if Mr. Sham has an independent status, he provides services to so many non-resident, not exclusively works for Mr. X. He has so many he's working on behalf of so many people. It is his main course of business to provide such services. Then Sham is not a business connection of Mr. X. There should be an exclusive relationship between them so that Mr. Sham becomes a business connection. The business connection, however, shall not be established where the non-resident carries on business activity through a broker or a general commission agent or any other agent having an independent status if such person is acting in the ordinary course of business. Independent status means abhi Sham works on the directions of Mr. X. Jaise Sham works on the direction of Mr. X means jaise Mr. X bolte hain वैसे he does, and all he's totally, there's an exclusive relationship between them. But if Sham provides the services to so many people abroad, then it is his main course of business. He's working independently. He's not just working only for Mr. X. Okay. So in that case, Sham will never be a business connection. Sham will never be a business connection. So first condition to establish a business connection is that there should be an exclusive relationship. Okay. Clear? Good. उसके बाद from a couple of years back, this concept, significant economic presence, was also included in the term business connection. एक तो हमने हो गया, business connection is one, a person is acting on behalf of the non-resident by concluding contracts, by maintaining stock, or by securing water. That is a person, there's a principal agent relationship that is happening. This is what one business connection meaning is. Some years back, they included a significant economic presence hona bhi business connection hai. Significant economic presence hona in India shall also constitute as business connection. Now, what does this mean? Now, ये बताती हूँ मैं why this change came. Now, you have seen the internet today is like anything. Digital India to one concept hai, but the global reach has become so easy for all of us because of the internet. No one has to come to India to do anything. Everything can be done from sitting outside India by maintaining offices outside India. So government identified that there are many companies, listen carefully, that there are many companies who are actually working outside India, who have everything outside India, but they have significant economic presence in India. Significant means something vital. Economic presence means they're earning in a way, they have economic interest in the country. India se unko अच्छा खासा पैसा आ रहा है, but we cannot establish a business connection because there is no agent working on behalf of them. Independently through internet, आज के date में they're earning a handsome amount from India, and we cannot tax them because income deemed to accrue or arise in India नहीं हो रहा. So suppose there was Facebook. I'm giving an example. ठीक है? Facebook को इंडिया के थ्रू बहुत सारा इनकम हो रहा है, बट फेसबुक तो कोई एजेंट नहीं इंडिया में, कुछ नहीं करना, वहां पे लोग एड्स देते हैं, वहां से इनकम हो रहा है. सो मेनी टाइप्स ऑफ इनकम्स आर हैपनिंग, बट फेसबुक सेज कि भाई how are you saying that it is deemed to accrue or arise in India? I am outside India, working outside India. How will you say it? So they came up with the concept of significant economic presence. Significant economic presence, that if a person say anyone, if a person has a significant economic presence in India, SEP. That means it's a business connection. That means it is an income coming from business connection. That is, it means it's an income deemed to accrue in India, and that means it would be taxable in India. So let me give you an example. आप लोगों ने बम्बल डाउनलोड किया, बम्बल जब आया, you downloaded बम्बल, suppose, okay, you paid certain amount on it. Now Bumble is outside India, you are just paying an amount to it. So Bumble इतना पैसा इंडिया से कमा रहा था, but they were not paying tax. Suppose I'm giving an example. Why? Because they were not covered anywhere. कोई business connection था नहीं था. Bumble कह रहा है I'm sitting outside India, I'm receiving it in my US account. Like how you can say that the income is accruing in India? So the government said that you have a significant economic presence in India. So they said, what do you mean by significant economic presence? So they defined it also that significant economic presence means this. So if you are having a significant economic presence, then you have to pay tax in India on the income deemed to accrue or arise in India. So now let's understand what is significant economic presence. In respect of any goods, services, or property carried out by a non-resident with any person in India, including provision of download of data or software in India, aggregate or payment arising from such transaction or transactions during the previous year should exceed 2 crores. So significant economic presence kab hoga in respect of any goods or services or property carried out by non-resident, for including provision of download of data or software, if the aggregate payments are received amounts to 2 crores or more. An example, so suppose you people download antivirus. सबसे easy example, ठीक है, from a foreign website. And you pay for it. So if the foreign website ka aggregate transactions from downloading that antivirus is more than 2 crores, that means this foreign website this foreign company has a significant economic presence in India, and hence whatever they are earning from this downloading of software from this significant economic presence would be taxable in India. Clear? Second example, this is for antivirus. Downloading games. वहाँ पे PUBG, I think PUBG इस बार का, you are paying a certain amount on this, ठीक है, PUBG में. So if the transactions which they have received from India amounts to 2 crores or more from everyone in total, that means PUBG has a significant economic presence in India. That means PUBG has to pay tax on the income which is coming from that significant economic presence because it is deemed to accrue or arise in India. The limit criteria is 2 crores or more to establish the significant economic presence. If the transactions are happening for less than 2 crores, it's not significant economic presence, it's not deemed to accrue or arise in India. Next, systematic and continuous soliciting of business activities or engaging in interaction with users in India. If the numbers of users on that platform is at least 3 lakhs, that means you have a significant economic presence. That means from that significant economic presence, whatever income you're having would be taxed in India. For example, Bumble. If Bumble has more than 3 lakhs users in India, that means it has significant economic presence in India. That means whatever income is coming from those 3 lakhs or more people would be taxed in the hands of Bumble. They have to pay tax in India for it. Now, is it clear? It does not matter कि significant economic presence से income कहाँ मिल रहा है, पैसा कहाँ मिल रहा है, कोई contract है या नहीं, does not matter that there is any agreement or not, what is the place of business, where is the service rendered, it does not matter. First of all, Van Heusen is an Indian company, Priyanka. But Rishabh, if you're earning, see, the government wants कि आप India say source kar rahe ho income, or anyone. See, the main concept of deemed to accrue or arise in India means that you are having an income from the source which is in India. So why not pay tax in India? But people are so unclear that what is actually source means. I'm having it outside India, I'm doing the services outside India, I'm getting the payment outside India. How can I be taxed in India? Then they came the concept with business connection. Ki, sir, you're having an agent who is helping you get that business, and that agent is of India. He's maintaining your stock or is concluding your contract. So even if you're rendering that service outside India or receiving it outside India, but it is happening because of that business connection. If that business connection would not have been here, you would have not get it. So that's why this business connection will imply that you have income from India. That means it is an income deemed to accrue or arise in India. That means you have to pay tax in India. So Bashish, it is for all the 3 points. Okay. So Sankar has asked, in stocks and in India, sales, billing and sales. So Sankar, this is such a typical query. Can you please simplify it and ask? See, one is business connection, जो agent वाला है, ठीक है? Another is business connection, which is significant economic presence वाला. One is business connection, which is coming through an agent. Another is business connection, which is coming through significant economic presence. जब a non-resident का significant economic presence is established, so उस connection से whatever is coming would be taxable in India. Okay? दोनों में से कोई एक condition, Rajesh Kumar, any of the one condition. Yes, Dinesh, definitely YouTube will be paying tax in India because of having an economic presence in India. Kavita, more than confusing, it's too technical. And for a person who is doing tax for the first time and just having been entered into the global tax scenarios and the Indian tax scenarios, it definitely is. Income tax for the first time is definitely overwhelming because you need some base to connect with it. Okay. So slowly, it will come to your hand. Don't worry. हम बार बार ये तो बता दिया. What is a business connection? What comes under business connection? Agent, if he habitually secures order, concludes contracts, or maintains stocks, or when a significant economic presence is there, correct? But there are certain situations where it will never be said to be business connection. These are exceptions to business connection. Exceptions to business connection. First exception is, in case of a non-resident, no income shall be deemed to accrue or arise in India to him through or from operations which are confined to purchase of goods in India for the purpose of export. So suppose Mr. Sham is only working for Mr. X. So you will say Mr. Sham is a business connection, correct? But what is Mr. Sham is doing? He's only purchasing raw material, which is then exported to, suppose, Vietnam. Okay. Raw material he's purchasing, which is exported to Vietnam, it is not being sold anywhere in India. Okay. The raw material is purchased and exported entirely to Vietnam. So Vietnam se jo bhi income Mr. X ko it is coming is not deemed to accrue or arise in India. You will not say that it has come because the business connection purchased the article and then sold it. It is an exception. So once a business connection is purchased, or once an agent is purchasing goods in India only for the purpose of export, then it will not be considered as business connection. It will not be treated as business connection. Okay. Secondly, What would not be treated as business connection, or what would not be treated as deemed to be accrue or arise in India? Next example. BBC News comes to India to cover or collect certain things and then transmit it outside India. It would be transmitted and aired outside India. But the news are collected from India, but the interview, suppose, was happened from a person in India, but actually it's just for collection of news. Whatever would come, it would come in outside India. Suppose they have taken an interview of a person who's of India, but all the article of it would be published in outside India journal or outside India magazine. It is not published in Indian magazine. So whatever revenue is coming from that would not be considered as business connection, pretty obviously, correct? So any collection of news in India for transmission out of India would not be considered as business connection. Third is shooting of cinematographic films in India. Now, many shootings happens in India, of Hollywood also. Nowadays, it does happen, right? Of Hollywood, of many foreign. There are so many now. Your Korean, your any movie industry comes to India, shoot here, and then obviously makes a movie and airs it basically. So you will, the Indian tax authorities will not go and say कि आपको इस income इस movie से जो भी पैसा आ रहा है, it is ours because आपने shooting India में करा था. No, it is out of the exception. So a person coming to shoot in India for a movie or for a cinematographic film would not be considered as business connection, provided that non-resident is also not a citizen. If that individual has come, or if a firm is coming, none of its partners should be a citizen, and if a company is coming, none of its shareholders should be a citizen of India. Okay. And last exception is activities confined to display of rough diamonds in SNZ, which is your specified notified zone. So कोई foreign mining company आके इंडिया में display करता है uncut diamonds or unassorted diamonds, उससे if they're having any income, would not be considered as income from a business connection, or it would not be deemed to accrue or arise in India. So with this, so specifically first half of the class is entirely for just business connection, which is just a small part of your entire universe of income deemed to accrue or arise in India. It's just this part which we have covered. Income accruing or arising outside India, directly or indirectly, through or from business connection, where we saw what actually is a business connection. It can be an agent who is acting on behalf of non-resident, securing order, concluding contracts, and maintaining stock habitually. It will only include the person who work as an independent status. And then we saw that significant economic presence is also business connection in India. And then we saw what all are not covered in business connection. So with this part is over. Now after break, we'll be taking all of these things, and you will see these will happen very quick than this. So take a break, and thoda sa take a break from business connection. We'll be right back in 10 minutes. Thank you. So welcome back after the break. So let's start by some questions. Varun, I'm not getting your question because I'm only getting, are you getting the question? There's no question from you. Let me just see again. Varun, please ask your question. Confined, Anish, means to stay with for. कहाँ पे पढ़ा आपने confined? Where it is? Confined, I think आपने इधर पढ़ा होगा. Confined means which is for the shooting of it, for the shooting. Okay. Varun, what is the question? I'm just getting the inquiry about the question, but I'm not getting the question. Where is the question? The producer of a foreign film is a citizen of India, then he has to pay tax on it. Rohit, in that case, yes, you can say. Business connection में two है. One is a person acting on behalf of the non-resident, and second is significant economic presence. So both would be included. ऋषभ, जीएसटी अलग कॉन्सेप्ट है. यहाँ पे एकदम टैक्स का बात हो रहा है. यहाँ पे अभी अक्रूअल का बात हो रहा है. चलो. So now let's proceed further. I hope the screen is visible. Abhi tak, what we understood that income deemed to accrue or arise in India means it includes income. Number one, income even if accruing outside India, but from a business connection directly or indirectly would be deemed to accrue or arise in India. Second concept is income from any property, asset or source. जिसका इंडिया में है, it would be income deemed to accrue or arise in India. So if the property is in India, the source is in India, the asset is in India, usse if you're having any income, it is deemed to accrue or arise in India. As simple as that. Suppose you are sitting in USA, but you are getting rent from a property in India, even if it is being received in your your foreign bank account. But the property is in India, that means the income is deemed to accrue or arise in India. Example यहाँ पे दिया हुआ है, one more just. Which is for deposits with Indian company for which interest is received outside India. आपका asset is in India, the property is in India, the income would be deemed to accrue or arise in India. ठीक है. So income deemed to accrue or arise in India में second concept is income from property, asset or source which is in India. Next, income through transfer of capital assets situated in India. Remember, I told you there are 5 heads of income. One of the head is income from capital gains. Capital gains में what happens when you are transferring any capital asset? तो उसपे अगर कोई profit, उसपे अगर कोई profit happens, that is capital gain, that is taxable in the hands of assessee. Now, suppose Mr. X, who is a US citizen, has a property in India, and he transferred that property to Mr. Y, who is also a US citizen. Who's also a US citizen, but the properties of India. The properties of India. So whatever profit Mr. X has on the transfer of property which is situated in India, which is the capital asset situated in India, would be deemed to accrue or arise in India. So Mr. X cannot say that this deal was executed outside India, we got the agreement outside India, the constitution was received outside India in foreign currency. No. The asset situated in India, the capital gain would be taxed in India as income deemed to accrue or rise in India. Clear? Now, एक बहुत technical चीज इसमें हुआ. What happened? Students, what used to happen was people used to make a Mr. X knew कि if I directly invest in India, if I listen carefully, this is very interesting. Final May, you will remember me if you get this case law right today. Okay, Mr. X knew that if he invests anything in India, it would be a capital asset situated in India, and when he will sell it, he has to pay tax in India because it's an income deemed to accrue or arise in India, as for the concept which we understood, correct? So if he invests in India, it would become a capital asset situated in India, and hence on transfer, he has to pay tax on it. Now, what Mr. X did, he became very smart. What he did, he incorporated a foreign company. He incorporated a foreign company. Mr. X incorporated a foreign company, say ABC Inc. And instead of he himself buying this capital asset, now ABC Inc. bought the capital asset. So ABC Inc. bought that land. Okay. Mr. X, what did Mr. X did? Instead of investing in India, he invested in a company which was actually investing the entire of its assets or the major part of its assets which are located in India. So now listen carefully. Yahan pe now, what will happen? If Mr. X transfers the share of ABC Inc., which directly or indirectly have actually invested in the capital assets situated in India for a substantial amount, those shares of a foreign company would also be treated as capital assets situated in India, and hence Mr. X will pay tax on the transfer of shares of this foreign company in India. Now you will ask, ma'am, ye kaise? So instead of investing directly and getting the benefits, he opened a foreign company. Okay, he opened a foreign company. Actually क्या होता है? Shares का value कहाँ से आता है? Assets से. The balance sheet gets equal. Shares का value कहाँ से आ रहा है? Assets से. And all these assets are actually the Indian assets. The company has invested the substantial amount in the India assets or in the assets located in India. So now automatically these shares, even if out of a foreign company, would be treated as the capital asset, and Mr. X has to pay tax in India on the transfer of such shares which are of foreign company. Read it. Further, an asset or a capital asset being any share or interest in a company or entity registered or incorporated outside India, which is this foreign company, shall be deemed and shall always to have been deemed shall always be deemed to have been situated in India if the share or interest derives directly or indirectly its value substantially from the assets located in India. क्योंकि foreign company के जो shares है उनका value कहाँ से आ रहा है? Indian assets से, because they invested the entire capital in the Indian assets. So those shares will also be deemed to be situated in India, and hence when Mr. X will transfer the shares of ABC Inc., it would be assumed that the transfer has happened of the capital assets situated in India, and hence it would be deemed to accrue or arise in India. Clear? But only on the transfer of shares. अगर X को कोई dividend मिल रहा है, it is not an income deemed to accrue or arise in India. अगर इन shares पे कुछ dividend मिल रहा है, it is not income deemed to accrue or arise in India, because dividend is generally from profit which is happening from business. Shares का what happens? Shares derive value from the assets, and if that assets are the major assets situated in India, then the shares would be treated as capital asset situated in India, and uski transfer pe whatever happens would be the income deemed to accrue or arise in India. Substantial value kya hota hai, how do you determine it, is taken care at your final level. Okay, am I audible now? Shall I explain it again? Because I believe some connection problem was there. Am I audible now? Shall I speak it again? Okay, so I'll speak this again, which is the asset wala part of share of a foreign. So I told you any asset which is situated in India, if transferred, the capital gain, the profit of it would be taxable in the hand of the non-resident. We cannot say that the transfer happened outside India. We had an agreement outside India. The consideration was received outside India. No, if the asset is situated in India, it is capital asset situated in India. The profit of it would be taxable in the hands of non-resident as income deemed to accrue or arise in India. But what happens is many a times now to avoid such a situation, but to take the benefits of from Indian assets or Indian market, what people did was instead of directly investing to the Indian assets, they invested in a foreign company, which indirectly invested in the Indian assets substantially. So foreign company ka shares ka value kahan se aa raha hai? From those assets of India, because the share capital was entirely invested now in the assets of India. So these shares were deemed to be taken as capital assets situated in India because they are deriving the substantial value from the assets situated in India. Hence, when Mr. X will transfer such shares which are a foreign company, it would be deemed that they have transferred the capital assets situated in India, and hence it would be deemed to accrue or arise in India. Okay. Any queries? You can read Yawala Pan and you will understand it. But this is only applicable when you transfer the shares. If you're getting any dividend, it would not be considered as deemed to accrue or rise in India. Okay? This is what is given in the green box. Thank you, Varun. Ma'am, you are telling that any foreign company situated in India transferring capital asset is deemed to accrue or rise in India as they are taxed in India. But no. GR Kanak Harini, no. Listen carefully. So I told you, third point of income deemed to accrue or rise in India, it is clearly written. The fourth point, basically, third and fourth, second and third were covered together. Fourth point, income coming from, even if accrued outside, but it would be considered as income in India if it is from transfer of capital assets situated in India. Capital assets situated in India means uska location India mein hai. Like property, it can be your shares which are of Indian company, it can be jewelry, it can be anything. So capital assets situated in India, once you transfer it, it would be considered as the profit of it would be considered as Indian income. I give an example of US citizen transferring a property in India to another US citizen. But they cannot say that we did the transaction outside India, we got the money in US dollars only, but the property was of India, hence it's an India income, and hence US Mr. X in this case has to pay tax on such profit. Okay. Now, people got smart. ये वाला जो केस सिनेरियो आया एक वोडाफोन का केस था, उससे this case situation came in and they modified the act. I will tell you what it is. They said that if a person is investing in a foreign company, that foreign company may not be situated in India, does not matter. If it's a foreign company, a person investing in a foreign company, okay, and that foreign company is directly investing a substantial value of its share capital in Indian assets. That means the shares are deriving their value from Indian assets. Shares of what? Shares of ABC Inc. are deriving their value from Indian assets. That means shares would also be deemed to be the assets which are situated in India. That means when Mr. X would be transferring these shares of a foreign company, it would be assumed that the asset which is being transferred is capital asset situated in India, and hence Mr. X has to give the tax on the profits which has come from the shares of ABC Inc. Clear? Any doubt now? But if Mr. X is getting any dividend from the shares of ABC Inc., it would not be said that dividend is profit on transfer of such shares is an Indian income. But dividend from such shares is not Indian income until received in India. Why? Because dividend comes from running of the business. That business can be run anywhere. But shares comes from shares derive the value from the assets. And that assets are where the assets are located in India. That means shares are deemed to be shares are the deemed assets situated in India, and hence the transfer of it would be taxable in the hands of Mr. X. आप समझ आया? Good. So Anish, when Mr. Y will transfer those shares, that would be considered as the asset. The point is shares कहाँ से value derive कर रहे हैं, okay? Next is income from salaries earned in India. What is salaries earned in India? When you render services in India, that means you're getting salary earned in India. That means that would be the income deemed to accrue or arise in India as per section 9, subsection 1, clause 2. So income deemed to accrue or arise in India covers income from salaries earned in India. And what does earned mean? Earned means for the services rendered in India. Then services rendered in India means service आपने India में render करी. For example, Mr. X came from Hong Kong and works rendering services in India in a project in India. So whatever salary he is getting for the services which he has given for the project which was happening in India, that salary is an Indian income. That salary is an Indian income because it's an India income accrued in India. That means Mr. X, who's a Hong Kong person, even if he's receiving the salary from his Hong Kong employer, even if the salary is getting credited in his Hong Kong account, but he has to pay tax in India on the part of the salary for which he has received for the services which are rendered in India. Clear? Now, because of this services rendered in India ka concept, because of this services rendered in India ka concept, services rendered in India ki relation में if you are getting anything also before or after would also be considered as service as salary received for services rendered in India. Ma'am, what do you mean? So suppose I am a person who has worked in India throughout her life, okay? entirely I worked in India throughout my life. So whatever salary I was getting, it was obviously salary and Indian income because I was rendering the services in India. Now I will, on retirement, I will get pension. Okay, pension from my employer because I worked there for such a amount, not large, for such a long time. So I will now be getting pension, correct? But I have shifted to Canada immediately on retirement. So I have shifted to Canada immediately on my retirement. Now, I will not say that I am now sitting in Canada, the pension is getting credited in my Canadian account, so it is not an Indian income. It is an Indian income. Why? Because this pension is coming because of result of services which were rendered in India, right? So this retirement benefit which I'm getting is purely because of the services which were rendered in India. Hence, this pension will always be income accrued in India. So see this. Further, this part. Further, any income under the head salary payable for the rest period or leave period, which is preceded or succeeded by services rendered in India and forms part of the service contract of employment, shall be regarded as income earned in India. The example is pension, gratuity, retirement benefits, leave encashment. You will see what are all these things. So that would be considered as income from salaries earned in India. Even if you're outside India after retirement, does not matter. Next, income from salaries payable by the government for services rendered outside India. So this would also be termed as income deemed to accrue or arise in India. Pehla to services are rendered in India, they are always deemed accrual income. But now, services are rendered abroad, but it would be deemed to be accrued in India only when the amount is paid by the government. Amount is paid by the government. So that means when you are government the person and you have been seconded abroad, you are rendering the services abroad, but who is paying for you? The government. So government is paying for you for the services which you are rendering abroad. That means that would be income deemed to accrue arise in India, even if the services are rendered abroad. Most common examples are for embassy. Embassy pata kya hote hai? High commissions. So India have high commissions in all the countries. Similarly, many countries have high commission in India. So people who are working in Indian High Commission in suppose say England. So who is paying salary to them? The government of India. The government of India is paying salary to them. So where are they rendering the services? In England. But those services ke liye that salary which is being getting would be income deemed to be accrued in India as per section 9, subsection 1, clause 3. Okay, इस पे MCQ आ सकता है, so you should know this. Okay. But यहाँ पे लिखा है any allowances and perquisites paid or payable outside India by the government to Indian citizen for services rendered outside India is exempt by tax. It is an Indian income, but it is not taxable. What is not taxable? The allowances and perquisites. Allowances and perquisites. Now, what are these? You will see allowances are some additional monetary benefits given to you. Perquisites are facilities. Now, since you're working in High Commission outside India, they give you certain benefits. So those benefits or those allowances are not taxable because they are exempt. Now, what is exempt? Wait for just another class, you will get a hold of it. Okay. Fourth category of income deemed to accrue or rise in India, because first 4 word of the first part, income accruing directly or indirectly through business connection, through any source in India, through any property in India, and through any capital asset situated in India, or on the transfer of any capital asset situated in India would be deemed to accrue or rise in India. Then we saw income from salary which is earned in India. Earned in India means salary for the services rendered in India. Then we saw income accruing out, income for the services which is given outside India, but the salary is paid by the government. That is also income accrued in India. Now we are seeing dividend paid by Indian company outside India. Indian company is always a resident. So if Reliance issues dividend and you are Mr. Joey, who is in Canada, receives dividend on this dividend of Reliance in your Canadian account, this dividend is an income deemed to accrue or arise in India because it's from an Indian company. Simple. Now to the very most important 3 points: interest, royalty, fee for technical services. उससे पहले किसी को कोई query है? Anyone has any query? Kavita, what is the query? Yes, dividends are taxable, Mehak. इनकम टैक्स के पेपर में एमसीक्यू आते हैं. अपर्णा मैम took second class basic concepts का. Last 15 minutes में she has given you the probably not 15, last 30 minutes में she has given you the entire scenario of how the exams comes, what are the criteria which comes in exam, the weightage, everything she has discussed. So Arpita, para 2, page 2.2, I'll take that also. Okay. 914 again कुछ नहीं है. See, dividend are taxable. Dividend Indian account में मिलता है. Everyone says that dividends are taxable. Now, but dividend of an Indian company received in foreign country. Mr. Joy is a shareholder of Reliance. Okay, Mr. Joy is a shareholder of Reliance India Limited. Reliance declared dividend. Okay, and Mr. Joy got that dividend in his Canadian account. So Mr. Joy cannot say that I have not received any dividend in India. No. In Mr. Joy ke liye, this dividend is an income deemed to accrue in India because it is a dividend issued by an Indian company. Okay, इसलिए Mr. Joey have to pay tax on this. Clear? Then para okay, Arpita, this is for you. Para 2, page 2 point. This is what you're talking about. A broker general commission agent. So I told you what a broker of independent status would not be considered as business connection because he is working independently. Uski khud ki choice se, okay? So this is what is written. A broker, general commission agent or any other agent shall be deemed to have independent status where he does not work mainly or wholly for the non-resident. When it would be considered as independent status? When he is not working exclusively for non-resident. This is Sham. If not working exclusively for Mr. X, that means Sham has independent status. That means Sham is not a business connection. Any other query? Anji Pranav, I will come take it, okay? Okay. Now, coming to the next part. Interest income would also be deemed to accrue or arise in India. And interest is deemed to accrue or arise in India. अब इसको समझने से पहले we are talking in the context of non-resident. यहाँ पे let's say Mr. X. Mr. X is receiving interest. He is receiving interest. When this interest would be deemed to accrue or arise in India is the concept now. Okay, I'm talking about interest. Mr. X is receiving interest from government. So suppose government of India has taken loan from him, which will not happen specifically in the case of Mr. X. Government may take loan from some other entity. Okay, and they are paying interest because loan has been taken by the government. They are paying interest. Now, interest is the income of the other party who's non-resident. It would be considered as income deemed to accrue or arise in India. What would be considered as deemed to accrue or arise in India? The interest which the non-resident has got from the amount from the loan which he lent to the government of India. And government of India has paid interest on such loan to the non-resident. So hence that interest which is being paid to the non-resident as is income deemed to accrue or arise in India for the non-resident. Number one. Number two, suppose Mr. X has given loan to Ms. Sushma, who is a resident of India. X gave loan to Ms. Sushma, who is a resident of India. Mr. X gave loan to Ms. Sushma, who is a resident of India. Now, Sushma will pay interest to Mr. X, right? So that interest would also be income deemed to accrue or arise in India for Mr. X. So when a resident of India pays interest to a non-resident of India, that interest becomes an income deemed to accrue or arise in India for the non-resident. Okay, provided means exception. That interest would not be treated as income of Mr. X if Ms. Sushma has used those funds which she borrowed for a business outside India, or for earning any income outside India. So suppose Ms. Sushma took a loan from Mr. X and then she invested it in the shares of Japan, a Tokyo company. The amount is invested in a Tokyo company. ठीक है, लोन अब वो इंटरेस्ट पे वो लोन देंगे जो मैंने मिस्टर एक्स से लिया था और सुषमा ने मिस्टर एक्स से लिया था. दैट इंटरेस्ट वुड नॉट बी डीम्ड टू अक्रू और अराइज इन इंडिया बिकॉज द अमाउंट of the loan is not invested in India. It is invested outside India. So can I say the interest which is a non-resident is receiving, from the loan which they lend to a person, which is actually the funds of which are being used in India, would only be taxable in the hands of Mr. X as deemed income or income accrued in India. Otherwise, it would not be accrued. Next example, Mr. X ने Mr. John, who is a non-resident, को loan दिया. Mr. X gave loan to Mr. John, who is a non-resident. Now Mr. John is paying interest to Mr. X. The question comes whether this interest would be taxable or not. The answer is yes. If Mr. John invests the loan amount, in any business, or profession in India. So simple hai. When would be an interest taxable in the hands of non-resident? One, if the interest is being received from the government. Okay? If the interest is being received from resident, provided the resident has not used those funds in any business or profession outside India or for earning any income outside India. Basically, वो funds India में use हुए, that's why the interest is being paid, and that's why that interest is being income deemed to accrue or arise in India. Similarly, if Mr. X gave the loan to a non-resident, that non-resident is giving back the interest amount. That interest would be taxable only if the loan is used for any business or profession in India. Not any other income also, only for business or profession in India. If Mr. John invests that amount in shares of India, then also this interest would not be taxable, because the answer is the interest would only be taxable by a non-resident to a non-resident when that loan is used in the business or profession in India. Now quickly read this and this would be clear. फटाफट से यहाँ से लेके यहाँ तक quickly read and tell me if there is any doubt. Because interest part clear होगा, royalty and FTS is almost on the similar line. With just इतना सा change, everything is exactly similar. Quickly, 1 minute में अच्छे से पढ़ो, कोई doubt है, so we'll take. So should I assume the interest wala part is clear? When interest is deemed to accrue or arise in India to a non-resident, once it is received from government, when it is received from resident who has not invested those in the funds in a business or profession outside India or in any source outside India, and if it is received from a non-resident who has invested it in business and profession in India. Second exception is basically यहाँ पे they are covering about non-resident. That non-resident interest would only be taxable if it is used for any the purpose of business or profession carried on in India by him. If he is using it for any other purpose, it will not deem to be accrue or arise in India. This example 4 में it is written. Sridhar, what is the query? Can you be more clear on it? So interest समझ आ गया. Royalty and FTS are almost the same. Royalty and FTS are almost the same, but one difference है which you will see कि क्या है. Okay. First of all, what is royalty? Before understanding when a royalty is deemed to accrue or arise in India, let's understand what royalty actually is. Royalty is a consideration, including any lump sum consideration, but excluding any consideration which would be a capital receipt, for transfer of all or any rights in respect of patent, invention, model, design, secret formulas. आप royalty देते हो for transferring the rights, that it will not be your exclusive right on it, that is royalty. Or you're giving royalty for giving any recipe as in secret formula, design, information about that patent, that is also royalty. किसी exclusive चीज के लिए amount pay करना is called royalty. किसी patent को use करने के लिए, if you are giving the amount to use any patent, that is also royalty. If you are giving any amount for exchanging the information, specific scientific information, that is also royalty. If you are giving an amount for using any equipment, that is also royalty. If you're giving any amount for copyright, literacy work, scientific work, videotapes, that is also royalty. So it can be a lump sum amount, it can be based on a certain factor, does not matter. But yes, computer software को अगर आप download करते हो, that is also your royalty. Because software की वजह से now you can use it. But आपने एक computer purchase किया, you purchased one computer, उसमें there were certain software which were already installed. Now you are paying the amount for the software along with the you are paying the amount for the hardware along with the software, correct? That will not be covered in royalty. So computer software को एक general purchase करना is royalty, is equivalent to paying royalty. But if computer software comes installed in a hardware and you're paying a lump sum amount for it, that would not be considered as royalty. Now this is what royalty means. Now when would be a royalty taxable in the case of non-resident is the question. When would be a royalty taxable in the case of non-resident is what is the question. Same question. Mr. X is getting royalty from Government of India. So if Government of India pays any royalty to Mr. X, who is a non-resident, it would be taxable as income deemed to be accrue in the hands of Mr. X. Exactly same. Mr. X is getting royalty from a resident. यहाँ पे सुषमा की जगह हम रख देते हैं Mr. Ashok. So Mr. Ashok is paying royalty to Mr. X, who is a non-resident, and Mr. Ashok is the resident, then this royalty would be taxable as income deemed to accrue or arise in India for Mr. X, provided that royalty which is paid by resident, who is Mr. Ashok, for the services or for the amount for which he's paying royalty is not utilized outside India for any business or profession or for earning any income outside India. Exactly similar to loan. Loan में क्या था कि जो आपने amount borrow किया, loan में what was there, that the amount which you borrowed should be used in India and should not be used for any purpose outside India or for not earning any income outside India like business or profession or any other income. Similarly for royalty, that when a resident is paying an amount of royalty to a non-resident, it would be taxable only if the purpose of the royalty stays to India. If you are paying royalty for any information or for any right which would be utilized in any business or profession outside India or for earning any income outside India, it would not be taxed in the hands of non-resident. And if the royalty is received from a non-resident to by a non-resident, sorry. If a royalty is received from a non-resident by a non-resident, then it would be taxable in the hands of non-resident only if for the purpose for which the royalty is paid is used or services are utilized for business or profession in India, or business or profession in India, or for earning any income in India. Or for earning any income in India, then that royalty would be taxable. Now, if you see the pattern, it is exactly same. Government se kuch aana, taxable in the hands of non-resident, interest and royalty. Similarly, Residents, if something is coming, taxable in the hands of non-resident, provided it is not used for the purpose outside India, for earning business or profession outside India, or for earning any income outside India. But non-resident के case में it will only be taxable if received from non-resident and is used for business or profession in India, or for any other income in India in case of royalty. But interest के case में the slightest difference है, यहाँ पे any other income नहीं है. Non-resident के केस में लोन का इंटरेस्ट would only be taxable if received from non-resident, only if it is used for business or profession, not for any other income in India. But royalty के केस में the difference, only that difference which I'm telling again is a slight difference, is the royalty के केस में a royalty received by non-resident to a non-resident would be taxable in India if it is used for business or profession in India, or if it is used for earning any income from any source in India. ठीक है, यहाँ पे any income, any source was not there in interest, but it is there in royalty. Otherwise, the aspect of taxability remains the same. The exceptions remains the same. Quickly, in 1 minute, read from here to here. Sridhar, first of all, the question, please take this question. This is for basic concept. I will definitely take this question towards the end of the class. Okay? Aarti, example 4 में it is not deemed to accrue or rise in India because वहाँ पे exception में this is what the difference which I'm pointing out. In case of interest, if it is received from a non-resident to a non-resident, it would not be taxable until and unless the loan amount is used for business or profession in India. If it is used for any other purpose in India, it would not be taxable. If it is used for business and profession, the loan amount is used for business and profession, then whatever interest the person is getting from the non-resident, it would be taxable only if it is used for business or profession. But royalty के case में, if it is received from non-resident to a non-resident, it would be taxable provided the amount, the royalty amount which you are paying for is used for in from any source or for business or profession. This is the slight difference which I am talking about between interest and royalty. कि non-resident वाले part में any other income and business profession both are covered in case of royalty, but interest वाले part में only business or profession is covered. Okay, Aarti? सबको clear? Sure. Now royalty and fees. Next is fees for technical services. Next is fees for technical services. So what is fees for technical services? Technical service क्या होता है? It can be any services which are of the nature of managerial, technical, consultancy, कुछ भी, and or even anything technical like architectural. All of these things are technical services. ठीक है? So architectural services, यहाँ पे there are certain use of skills of the assessee, that is called technical services being provided by the assessee. So if you are paying fee for technical services to a non-resident, if you're paying fee for technical services to a non-resident, it would be taxed in the hands of in the hands of non-resident when it is deemed to accrue or arise in India. And when it will be deemed to accrue or arise in India? When, if it is received from government when it is received from resident and when it is received from non-resident. But resident and non-resident के case में you have to remember that if it is received from resident, the fees should be for the fees which the resident is paying to Mr. X. The fees which the resident is being paid to Mr. X should not be for any business or a profession carried out outside India, or should not be paid for earning any income outside India. वो इसका exception है. Otherwise, all fees for technical services paid by resident to Mr. X would be always taxable. And non-resident के case में condition है कि if a non-resident is paying fees for technical services to another non-resident, it will only be taxable when it is used to, when the fees which is being paid for will ultimately be utilized for any business or profession in India or for earning any income in India. Okay, so fee for technical services and royalty are exactly similar. Clear? Next, we move towards the last part of income deemed to accrue or arise in India, which is any sum of money paid by resident Indian to non-corporate, non-resident or a foreign company. This was very recently included 2.5 years back, somewhere I think July 2019. Yes. So what is this? Now, क्या होता था? What used to happen? People used to go abroad, give good amount of cash to their relatives abroad, and relative abroads were all chill because they did not, the income, they said कि income accrue तो हुआ in India में, मेरे को तो Canada में आके मेरे relatives ने पैसा दिया, right? So income India में accrue ही नहीं हुआ, or income did not happen in Indian account, it is not received in India. I'm sitting in Canada, I got a good amount of cash from relatives in India, so it is not accrued. So they included this concept, which is income deemed to accrue or arise in India by any sum of money paid by resident Indian. So if a resident Indian is paying any money as in cash and all stuff to a non-resident or to a foreign company for the amount exceeding 50,000, then the income would be deemed to accrue or arise in India. So अगर 50,000 से ज़्यादा आपने non-resident को as a resident person, you have given more than 50,000 of cash, then the entire amount, which is more than, when the entire amount would be taxable in the hands of non-resident as income deemed to accrue in India. Clear? So this is only when a resident Indian gives cash to a non-resident or a foreign company for an amount exceeding 50,000, the entire amount would be taxable. The non-resident, see, जिसके hand में it is getting taxable अभी तक in all these scenarios, uska it is income, they have to pay tax on it. Understood? So if now I have to sum up my concept of income deemed to accrue or arise in India quickly on the screen, everyone. So income deemed to accrue or arise in India as per section 9 subsection 1 can happen to various scenarios. One is income accruing or arising outside India directly or indirectly from any business connection. What is business connection? It includes agent acting on behalf of non-resident, either securing order, either maintaining stock, or either concluding contracts. Uske through whatever the non-resident gets the income is income deemed to accrue or arise in India or through significant economic presence. Then if a non-resident is having any property or assets or source of income situated in India, it would be income deemed to accrue or arise in India. If a non-resident transfer any capital asset situated in India, it would be income deemed to accrue or arise in India. What would be the income here? The profits. If any services are rendered in India, that is salary earned in India, and hence it would be income deemed to accrue or arise in India. If the government is paying for any services outside India, it is income deemed to accrue or arise in India. if you're receiving any dividend from an Indian company, it is income deemed to accrue or arise in India. If as a non-resident you are receiving any interest, royalty, fees, it would be taxable as income deemed to accrue or arise in India if received from government or if received from resident, provided the resident is not using the money borrowed or fee for technical services for which it is paid or for royalty which is being paid for any business or profession carried outside India. And the money is basically used for the purpose in India by a non-resident for earning any business or profession or any other source of income in case of royalty and fee for technical services, and in case of interest for only earning the business or professional income. And last, income arising or accruing outside India by a non-resident from a so it will cover when you receive any monetary sum from a resident for a value exceeding 50,000 as a non-resident or as a person or a foreign company, then this would also be income deemed to accrue or arise in India. This total becomes income deemed to accrue or arise in India would be taxable in the hands of non-resident, and he has to pay tax in it in the Indian tax scenarios. Clear? Now, tell me where is the doubt? So for the last 5 minutes, I will take undisclosed income wala part also. But if there's any doubt here, please let me know. So resident person, यहाँ पे monetary reference है. So only in the case of monetary reference, we are covering now Kavita, income deemed to accrue or arise in India. So Kanak Harini, if the royalty is paid, first of all, royalty would be paid for certain earning certain benefit. That benefit, say, kuch income is being earned from India, it would be taxable as the non-resident ka income. So I am assuming residential status and scope of total income, say everything is clear. You definitely have to read the entire chapter, do illustration 8. I'm telling you again and again, section 9 is extremely important. If you make a strong base right now, in final, it is a more important section. It would be very, very, very important for you. So do all the illustrations, all the questions from it, number 1. Now moving to basic concepts ke chapter ka doubt which I have from few people. Let's take that, okay? Technical services are like architectural services, Kavita. Diyanesh, not only in last point, in all the points, non-resident is liable to pay the tax to the government, to the Indian government. ये सारा non-resident के perspective से तो we are doing. Not Indian citizen. Indian citizen is a wrong word. Non-resident को बाहर कोई income हो रहा है, he is a non-resident, he is having any foreign income, it is not accrued in India, it is not received in India, it would not be taxed in India, it would be taxed in the source country from wherever he is having that income, or it would be taxed in the resident country wherever he is a resident. Yeah, non-resident can be Mr. X or can be any foreign company also. So I have one question 5 of page 1.71. First, let's take that. Students, please wait. After this query, I will take up undisclosed sources of income. So do not go anywhere, okay? So Saurav, please, we did this question, I think, in the previous class also. Let's understand it. No, accrue and arise is same thing. So Mr. Agarwal is the age of 40 years. He's a resident. He has total income of 4 crore 50 lakhs. ठीक है? 4 crore 50 lakhs का income है. किनको? अग्रवाल जी को. अग्रवाल जी को total 4 crore 50 lakhs income है, from which 55 lakhs is a special rate income, long term, short term capital gain. Special long term capital gain section 112 में. 65 lakhs is section 11A में, again a special rate income, and 3 crore 30 lakhs otherwise. ठीक है. So now how will we calculate the tax and surcharge on it? So 55 lakhs पे 20%, 65 lakh पे 15%, 3 crore 30 lakhs पे other income के according, simply slab rates, no problem. Now let's come to the surcharge part of it, that how the surcharge would be calculated in this scenario. This is the query, right? So let's take it. Now यहाँ पे what is the total income? 4 crore 50 lakhs. So immediately we will see that it's an income of 4 crore 50 lakhs. You will say, ma'am, no, यहाँ पे तो the income is more than 2 crore. So यहाँ पे हमारा marginal, sorry, यहाँ पे the income is more than 2 crore 50 2 crore, more than 2 crore. So यहाँ पे higher surcharge of 25% should be applicable, correct? On the entire income, but I'll say no, because I told you on certain special rate income, which is 112, 11A and 112A, and dividend income, there's a capping of surcharge. Maximum surcharge that would be applicable would be 15%. So hence on this income के ऊपर जो भी tax है, which is 11 lakh and 9,75,000, the maximum surcharge would be 15%. Hence on 20,75,000, 15% का surcharge लगाया. Now let's see the other income. Now if other income excluding the special rate of income is crossing 2 crore, then उन पे higher surcharge लगेगा of 25%. Hence on 97,1 to 500, the higher surcharge of 25% is applicable. Had it been not 3 crores but suppose 1 crore 90 lakhs, then the surcharge here would have been 15%, even if the entire income is crossing 2 crore, but excluding the special rate income, it is less than 2 crore. So hence the normal surcharge would be applicable. Higher surcharge would be applicable, which is the 2 crore wala slab ka higher surcharge, only if the income excluding these two incomes are crossing 2 crore. Rashtaran, what is this question? I did not know. What is the tax it means? गिफ्ट को थोड़ी देर के लिए ऋषभ छोड़ दो. गिफ्ट का टैक्सेबिलिटी इज देयर इन अदर कॉन्सेप्ट. आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट मॉनेटरी रिसीट्स. मॉनेटरी रिसीट्स ट्रैक करना हुआ थोड़ा सा पॉसिबल. प्लस पीपल यूज टू से कि दीज आर रिसीव्ड आउटसाइड इंडिया, कहीं बैंक में नहीं आया. हाउ वुड बी एन इनकम अक्रूड इन इंडिया? सो मॉनेटरी रिसीट्स बाय अ रेजिडेंट, फ्रॉम अ रेजिडेंट person to a non-resident or to a foreign company is taxable. Then I think Sridhar had a doubt on the tax rate of the company, correct? Sridhar, on the screen please now. So let's understand the tax rate of the company. Tax rates are for all the years which I told you, but tax rates के लिए there are two things I told you for company. Previous year 22-23 का tax rate is 30%, but small companies को benefit दिया जिनका एक small turnover है कि you can apply the tax rate of 25% provided your turnover in previous year 2021 is up to 500 crores. Up to 400 crores. In previous year 2021. Now you will say, ma'am, tax rate is for previous year 22-23. Why are we taking a reference of previous year 2021? Now listen carefully. Why? 22-23 के starting में you should know the tax rate. Why? Because advanced tax होता है, planning has to go. So 22-23 का तो limit नहीं would be applicable because turnover is for the entire year. Now you will say, ma'am, why have they not taken the turnover for 21-22? It is why, because budget comes in the middle of 20, not in the middle, but towards the end of 21-22. So to take the benefit of this lower tax rate, people can modify their turnover. Hence, the year which is completely closed, that's why us year ka turnover ka reference hai for getting a beneficial tax rate. Now is it clear, Sridhar, that why are we seeing the turnover of 2 years back and not of the current previous year? Yes, foreign income, non-resident person received in India, obviously it is taxable because income received in India is always taxable. Sabse pehle a question comes, always pick income received in India. It would be taxable for all people. Then income accrued in India. Accrued in India may apply section 9. It would be taxable in case of all people. Then see, income outside India, not accrued in India, but from a business control in India, would be taxable for ROR and RNOR. And for others के लिए foreign necessities, resident के लिए तो every income is taxable. If the turnover is more than 400 crores, then 30% rate is applicable. General rate is 30%, beneficial rate is 25% for less turnover wala companies. So everyone, please focus on the screen now. Now we are doing undisclosed source of income. Now you might these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the screen, please. These are undisclosed sources of income. Yahan pe these would be considered as your deemed income if you do not give a satisfaction on the sources of it. Satisfaction to whom? To the income tax department, to the assessing officer. If you do not give a clear satisfaction of the source, they will not give you the benefit of it and they will treat it as your deemed income. And the moment they will treat it as your deemed income, it would be taxed at a much higher rate. It would be taxed at a much higher rate. Ma'am, what are the rates? Let's understand first what are the undisclosed sources of income. Then we'll be coming to the rates. The first undisclosed source of income is cash credit. Cash credit. आपके books में any amount, there is any sum of credit which is there, okay? And you do not tell कि ये पैसा कहाँ से आया, from where this money came, from what is the nature of this money. You are not telling that. So first of all, students, remember first class I told you income tax mein income is taxable, not the receipts, not the turnover, right? But receipts will become taxable if you do not give the explanation of it to the department, if you do not give the explanation of it to the department. आपने ex department को नहीं बताया that what is this money actually from and what is the nature of it, then the cash credit would, whatever entry of credit is there, they will treat it as income. They will treat it as income. They will treat that cash credit as income. Now, अब सपोज करो मेरे बुक में एक अमाउंट खड़ा हुआ है लोन से, ठीक है, इट्स इन माय बुक. दे आस्क मी कि ये क्या है, तो आई टोल्ड दैट दिस इज अ लोन फ्रॉम माय फ्रेंड. So I give them an explanation. You will say कि मैम आपने explanation दे तो दिया. You have given them the explanation that this is a loan which I got it from my friend. But income tax department will not be satisfied until and unless my friend tells कि from where this loan came from, how did my friend got the money and paisa to give that loan to me. So what people used to do it, they used to tell कि ये तो मुझे X person ने दिए, Y person ने दिए for so and so thing. So now government wants to catch hold of black money and the sources of undisclosed. Undisclosed means जिसको you are not disclosing. They want to know that everything is in white and white. So that's why now the income tax department will track the person जिसका I have took the name, that this person has given me the loan. Now if this person has given me the loan, then the income tax department will not consider my explanation of it satisfactory until and unless the person who has given me the loan, gives a satisfactory explanation to the department about the nature and source of such income. If he fails to give the satisfactory explanation, then this loan would be treated as my income. This cash credit would be treated as my income. Clear? Similar thing happens in the case of private companies. So private companies make what happens, share capital and share application money ke according government used to, these people used to get a lot of money from directors and they used to show it as share capital money or share application money received in advance or application money not yet allotted, ऐसे करके they used to show. So company के पास they used to show a lot of money like this. So what happened? Company XYZ से inquiry हुआ, XYZ Private Limited से they did an inquiry and they asked that what is this cash credit? They said that this is a share capital money. And now you will say कि हमने share capital money, we have said it as a share capital money, we have said it as a share application money. Now what government will what do? They will not treat it as unexplained. No, until and unless the person who is a resident who has given this share application money gives them a clear picture about where this money came from to invest in this share application, to invest it in this company, they do not give a clear clarification about the nature and source, the government would not be, the income tax department would not be satisfied and they will treat it as an undisclosed income of the company. ठीक है, so कहने का मतलब ये है, first if there's any cash credit in your books of accounts, you have to give them the source ka information, that where this money is coming from. But in case that you show that this money is a loan from X person, and until and unless that X person tells the clear source and nature of that money, they will not treat the explanation satisfactory and they will treat it as undisclosed source of income. Similarly happens in the case of company. If the company asks a person, if the assessing officer asks the company from where such money came from and the company told that this is a share application money, the income tax department will not be satisfied until and unless जिसने share application money दिया था, they tell that how this money they received, what is the nature and source of that money. Okay, this is called the concept of cash credit as undisclosed income. Then there is unexplained investment. Unexplained investment. Suppose in the financial year, immediately preceding the assessment year, you made the investments which are not recorded in the books of accounts, and they are not in your books of accounts, and you do not offer the explanation of the nature and source of income. It would be treated, or you offered an explanation but it is not satisfactory. It would be treated as undisclosed income, and hence you have to pay tax on it. So if the investment is not recorded in your books, number one. Number two, you do not give a satisfactory explanation to it. So that unexplained investments would also become your income. Similarly, unexplained money. If there is any money which is recovered from you, if any money is found in your possession and you are the owner of it, and money, say we mean money, bullion, jewelry, etc., and that is not in your books of accounts, you have not disclosed it to the department, and you do not give a satisfactory explanation to it, that unexplained money would also be treated as your undisclosed income. That undisclosed means you did not tell it to the department. Next, abhi tak second and third mein you did not record it into the books. यहाँ पे fourth is amount of investment recorded in the books of accounts but not sufficiently. You did not fully disclose it. You did not fully disclose it. So if any amount of investment you did not fully disclose, suppose you have invested in golds of 300 grams, but you disclosed only of 100 grams. So 200 grams you did not disclose, and you did not tell about where, how do you got money to invest in this particular gold of 300 grams, it would be treated as undisclosed income. Next is unexplained expenditure. Unexplained expenditure. This happens very rarely, very commonly, I'll say. Sorry, not really. Suppose a marriage is happening, and you know Indian marriages are so extravagant, such a high amount is spent, right? Suppose someone came and surveyed you, income tax department came and surveyed you, the person who was spending without limit to the shadi. So they ask कि ये पैसा कहाँ से आया आपको शादी में इतना spend करने के लिए? From where did you get so much money to make such an expenditure? So you are unable to tell कि expenditure करने के लिए पैसा कहाँ से आया. You are unable to tell from where did you get that money to make that expenditure. So that expenditure which you are making would be treated as your income. So all of these things deemed income, which from undisclosed sources are treated, even if they're not income, they are investments, they are loans, they are expenditure, but they are treated as your income. And the last is amount borrowed or repaid on hundi. Hundi, एक तरीके से like a bill of exchange होता है, but not a valid bill of exchange. It's like a hundi, a general thing. उस हुंडी के ऊपर, if you're taking any amount in cash, if you're borrowing any amount, that amount becomes your, that loan amount which you borrowed in cash or other than by account pay check or account pay bank draft. So that amount which is borrowed becomes your income. The amount which you borrowed becomes your income. And similarly, if you are repaying any amount on hundi, the amount which you repaid becomes your income. The amount which you repaid becomes your income. But if an amount is already treated as income on borrowing, it will not be treated as income again on repaying. Simple. So all these incomes are called income from undisclosed sources, and they are taxed at a higher rate of 60%. All of these are taxed at a higher rate under special section 115 BBE at a rate of 60%, and on this there is a 25% surcharge and 4% cess. So effective rate comes to 60 plus 25 plus 4, effective rate comes to 78%. That's all from my side on both the chapters. If anyone has any doubt, you may ask. Please drop in your feedbacks. Please do study. And the most important thing, Please have a safe and a prosperous Diwali. Enjoy the festival because...
Recording in progress.
Yeah, so what are the queries now? Okay. 60 plus 25% करो, 60 पे 25% ऐड करो, फिर 4% ऐड करो, 78% आ जाएगा कविता. Okay, Sridhar has, if the turnover in the previous year is 20 to 23 is less than 400 crores, ma'am, is it turnover of 20 for the tax rate for 20 to 23, Sridhar? You have to see the turnover of 2020, 2021. It does not matter what is the turnover of 22 23 or 21 22. 22 23 ka rate is decided based on the turnover of 2021. If it is up to 400 crores, 25%. If it is more than 400 crores, 30%. हाँ जी, है नहीं, मैं वैसे एक बार देखती हूँ. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope all your queries are resolved. If anyone has any other doubt, please ask, and then we can wrap the class. Happy Dhanteras. Have a great time, and do have a safe Diwali. And please take yourself, give yourself a break. This is what my message would be today. But yes, study well and give yourself a break also.